get started. Good afternoon. Hopefully, since we're following lunch, this is not nap time for you or for me. Given our speakers, I don't think it will be. But my name is Reich Sandlin. I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of High Tech Assets. We're an electronics recycling company in Oklahoma with operations in Oklahoma and Tennessee. I'm also chairman of the ISRI Services Board, which is the governing body for RIOS, the standard, and I serve on the R2 Technical Advisory Committee as well. I've been around this for quite a while, so David asked me to jump in and help introduce these two outstanding speakers. The topic today is invest in your company, invest in RIOS, which implies that there is an investment, right? There's an outlay of resources of some sort, and that's true. But the payoff, I think you'll find from listening to these guys is, the return on that investment is very good. It's solid. It's something you can depend on and project. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. John Bianculli joined Ocala Recycling, which is is that ferrous and non-ferrous? Or?
Yes, sir.
Okay, ferrous and non-ferrous recycler here in Florida back in 2005. He has been responsible for human resources, safety and risk management, technology, and he was one of the first, representing one of the first companies in the world to become certified to RIOS. Was it the first or
yes.
the first company in the world to be certified to RIOS? So really breaking new ground several years ago. He implemented it at Ocala, and since then he's implemented it at two other facilities within the David Joseph companies, DJJ. So we certified in October 2009, which means that you went through your 3-year recertification last year, right? And so he's still certified, which is a good thing. His responsibilities now include RIOS, managing the RIOS initiative within the company, and he also serves as secretary to the Florida Recyclers Association. And so with that, John's technical skills are well beyond mine, I believe. So I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about Ocala and trademarks investment in RIOS. Flip this over for you.
Thanks, Reich. So, my name is John Bianculli, as Reich said. I'm Special Projects Manager for Trademark Metals now. We were acquired by Trademark 2010, and so I'm with the company still. And part of my ongoing responsibilities is the RIOS, implementing RIOS across the different facilities. And we have a strategy in place for rolling out implementations over time, and so we continue to do that, and I'll talk a little bit about that as I go through the presentation. Can everybody hear me? You guys good? If you have questions, it's a small group, so let's have this work for you guys. If you have a particular question and we get close to the question, or I get close to the question, just shout it out, raise your hand, or whatever. Let's make this session work for you guys. We can do that because it's just a few of us here. So invest in RIOS, invest in your company. As the introductory slide said or pointed out, there are two perspectives that I like to talk about with respect to RIOS. One is the operations perspective, and the other is the consumer perspective or the sell side perspective. So I'll talk a little bit about the sell side as far as scrap metal recycling goes, with respect to the benefits of RIOS, RIOS can have on within your company. Specifically, China's AQSIQ requirement for revised permits to sell to China. where they require either ISO 9001 or now they're recognizing RIOS also. So as that starts to gain headwind, I think you'll see a lot more interest on the scrap side, on the cell side of the scrap metal industry in RIOS for those benefits. Now, the big advantages that we've seen in our company is in the operational side. Reducing cost, eliminating risk, and I'll talk a little bit about those as I move forward. So why RIOS? Why any standard, right? One reason, to make money, okay? That's the goal you should have in mind. That's what you want to present to your ownership or to the executive group. That's the reason, that's the motivation to implement RIOS. I can't really, there are things on the safety side that come into play. There are things on the environmental side that come into play, but the overriding factor or the overriding reason to implement RIOS is to make more money. There is an investment. So there's not a cost, but we think of it as an investment. It is a perspective, right? So you can think of it as like, well, I'm going to buy the book, I'll buy the license, I'll get the book, I want to get the flag, I'll bring somebody in, they'll write the book, and I'll get certified. That adds no value really to your company. What you want to do is you want to take RIOS and you want to integrate it into the way you do things. I'll talk a little bit about that too. I'll talk a little bit about the implementation experience. So that's where people have questions about, well, how do I get through this process? A little bit about what we went through, and like Reich said, we were an original. So we were part of the pilot program. There wasn't anybody before us, and in fact, when we were going through the process, there weren't even auditors accredited to audit the program. So our experience was a little bit unique in that respect, but very common in a lot of different other respects, and I'll talk about those a little bit. And then how to leverage your RIOS investment. So that's really where you want to start. It's just like writing a business plan. You take out a pencil and a piece of paper and you write down, what do I want to get out of this? How am I going to measure that? What are the advantages that I want to see? And I'll talk a little bit about that, talking to different companies that are RIOS certified, asking them the benefits that they got out of the program and how they made money with the program, and actually write down a plan of how you're going to use this system, go through this process to generate money for your company. And then, of course, the return on investment, where you should really, even before you begin the whole process, try to identify, at least on a general level, what you want to get out of it, what are the metrics for measuring success, and how your plan is going to proceed from this very nebulous starting point to those very specific goals. So why implement any standard? Again, to make money, and in small print, because I don't want everybody to know it, although I don't think this group is okay to know it, to create a competitive advantage, okay, to control costs in your yard and in your facilities, and maybe across facilities. That's the reason for, on the operational side, for implementing RIOS. And why RIOS itself? Because it was written for our industry. It makes a lot of sense for our industry. It covers 3 areas: quality, environmental, and health and safety. Those are 3 key components to success in our industry. And so that's why. The investment itself, there's a licensing fees, which is a trivial part of the actual overall cost of the program. There's a training session. Trainer sessions are scheduled throughout the year, a couple of times a year, and that's where, when you're ready, after you create your business plan for implementing RIOS, that's where you go and have 1 or 2 people that are going to be tasked with implementing RIOS. You send them there to get them trained. That's where you make contacts with different people, with other companies that are going through the program, where you learn the different steps. You're taken through the implementation guide. You learn the different steps for implementing RIOS, and it's truly very worthwhile. I would plan it right for when you're about to get started, or even a little after you get started, and take advantage of that resource. There's employee time. That's an investment. So your employees are really going to write your program for you, okay? They're the guys that meet and decide on the goals and how nonconformances are handled and what metrics to include in the system and policies and procedures and checklists and all the things that make up the system itself. That's your employees will create that for you. You can use consultants. It's not a bad thing to do, especially if you get stuck. Consultant can be very valuable, but I would strongly recommend that you identify a mentor company, another company, a non-competitor that's gone through the process already and that can help you when you get stuck. And I do that for another company that's out of our geographic area. And whenever they get stuck, they give me a call and I help push them over to the next hill. And then there's auditing expense. That's where at the end of the process, after you've created your system, an auditor will come in, and an external auditor, you'll pay them, and they'll come in and they'll make sure that your system is up and running and viable. It doesn't mean that it has to be perfect at that time, but that it actually is a full management system written to the standard itself. Questions? Okay, so planning is key. You want to make sure that you've got, in fact, I don't know how else you would sell it to senior management or ownership, unless you put a little P&L together and say, look, this is the investment, this is the opportunity, these are the things we think we can impact and make money from implementing this system. So Ocala Recycling, we were a charter member of the program. 3 companies were selected as pilots for the program. We were the mid-sized company. And we, like I said, we went through the process of being certified. We actually got through the process. We actually had meetings about 6 months before the auditors were ready to discuss, well, you know, what do we do if the auditors are not ready and there's no certification to be had? And it was unanimous that we decided, no, we're going to keep going with this because we can see the value. We could actually see the value at that point from an operational point of view, an internal point of view of continuing the program. And I'll share some of those metrics with you. Our current RIOS path, we were bought by a company and then traded to another company. And so we're part of Trademark Metals now. And they took a long, hard look at the program itself. They have a pretty robust safety program in place and an environmental program in place also that was very robust. So they were trying to understand the value, but they did, over time, understand it. And so we rolled it out, like Reich said. We rolled it out to 2 more yards, basically on a pace to do one more facility each year. As far as the engineering of the system, that first yard is the big one, okay? That's where all of the, if you want to call it the non-recurring engineering expense of creating a system happens. And then, as you can imagine, you start to get economies of scale as you introduce RIOS to other yards. So your implementation experience, of course, is going to be different. And I cannot stress enough to find somebody to help you through that process. Consultant, part-time, another company that's not in your geographic area, is not a competitor for you, that is RIOS certified, and get their ideas. Create your plan. Put your plan together. Make sure it makes sense economically for you. And get ownership approval, obviously, that is the key. Senior management has to be behind the process. Otherwise, obviously, as things come up, the day-to-day aspects of building the system will be set aside for other priorities. So you want to make sure you stay ahead of that and that you have that commitment. Put together who's going to implement the system, a plan of action. It does require time. It does require effort. Particularly if you haven't gone through a certification process before, it'll require significant effort. So make sure that person has some dedicated time to spend to developing the system. And the idea is that with RIOS, you can do your jobs cheaper, better, and faster from an operational point of view, that's what you're looking for. Slow and steady wins this race, okay? So over time, you want to make sure that the commitment is there. Like I said, you want to keep momentum. You want to keep the system moving forward, particularly during the implementation process. And you want to have a plan for when other priorities come up so that that commitment is there so you can remind everybody, we said we were going to meet once a week from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. We're going to have a 1-hour meeting. It's not going to be a 2.5-day affair. These are the things we want to get done in the meeting. These are the things we have to tackle, and make sure if you're the management rep, if you're the guy that's tasked with putting the system together, that you're not wasting people's times and you're ready for them to come into the meeting. It's all about leveraging what you're going to do, okay? So I want you to put in your mind there as you start thinking about the system, it's not something extra that you do. It's how you do your job. It's how you bail. It's how you buy material. It's how you sell it. It's how you ship it. And it makes the world of difference to have that in your head that, no, this isn't something extra we do. We're not going to check off another box just to check it off. We're actually implementing these controls, these procedures, this training in order to get this value that we've identified in our plan. And it's not something extra that we do. It's inculcated into everything that you do. And the reason for that is rule number one, there's no time to do anything extra, particularly in this environment, okay? So you don't have time to have a meeting just to have a meeting. You need to be able to get some real value out of it. And so that's why we say that it's not something extra that you do once you implement the system. It's just the mechanism for how you do things. I can't, tell you how many times I've been in a meeting where it's Tuesday morning, and of course, every third Tuesday morning of the month, X happens. And okay, now it happens again, and all of a sudden it's a big surprise to everybody. When really, if we sat down for 10 minutes and thought about it, we could write a procedure or a plan to address that issue, and then we'd be done with it, hopefully forever, and put it to bed. And that's how a system like RIOS can start buying you time. So what can you expect to get out of implementing RIOS? I kind of call that the RIOS economics. Starting with quality. Reduce rejections, downgrades, and complaints. Foster production of quality products. Improve production efficiencies. Increase customer perceived value. And the AQSIQ potential advantage. Okay? So quality means reducing cost, better product, upgrading product. It means that if there's a spec, that you're as close to that spec as you can be, economically feasible to be. Doesn't mean it's 100% perfect product, right? We sell to spec, so you want to make sure it's close to that spec, and you want to have a process in place where you can continuously generate that product to that level of quality. With respect to environmental, if you have a facility, you know the potential risks associated with environmental impacts. A system like RIOS, where one of the three keys or prongs to RIOS is on the environmental side, is huge in allowing you or reducing the amount of exposure or potential risk. So reduce long-term liability, improve housekeeping, ensure compliance, and demonstrate good faith to inspectors, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the experiences we've had with that. This one, health and safety, really should be first, but it's a QEH&S system, right? And really, first in this category should be the protection of human life, right? We have some, particularly on the scrap side, some very powerful equipment running around the yards or stationary in the sense of shredders that requires diligence and safe practices and procedures. So that is a moral imperative that we're really under in this industry, and that does translate, of course, to dollars also. So the reduction of accidents and associated lost time, reduce equipment accidents, which translates to repair and maintenance savings, and demonstrate, again, good faith to inspectors. and I'll go over that a little bit now with some sense of the numbers that we've experienced. We've improved employee retention. It was up 12% in the first year, 25% in the second. Obviously, there's a cost to hiring people, and who gets hurt? The first 90 days on the job, that's a big spike for when people get hurt on the job. So you reduce the number of employees that are within that 90 days time frame, and it helps to bring down accidents and incidents. We decreased OSHA recordable incidents, down 75% the first 2 years, and 95% over 4 years. So you can see those are significant numbers. I think the license is $2,500, the license fee for RIOS?
It varies. Your first
Varies?
facility, it's $29.75 one time, $9.75 your first year. Your next
Right.
facility is a little bit reduced.
Right.
Discount.
Okay, so even at $3,000, I mean, a lost time accident, you guys know what that costs you. And that's not even a severe accident, God forbid. Some case studies. So at Ocala in around early 2010, we had the Florida DEP visit us. They requested some information about the shredder. The shredder manager was out that Friday afternoon, and so was the guy that was managing that information. So, you know, telling an inspector, boy, the guy's not here today, can you come back Monday, would have been a bad thing. We went into the system, we looked it up, we pulled the material and put it in her hand within 3 minutes, and out the door she went. That's what you want with that kind of an inspection. We had an OSHA industrial hygiene visit the same year. The inspector came in, he slapped his meters on a couple of employees, and now he had 6 hours to kill. So he wanted to walk around the yard. So we brought him into the conference room, we said, hey, we want to show you this system. And we showed him the RIOS system. And after about an hour or so in the room, he was confident that we were trying to do the right thing, that we were on the way to doing the right thing, even if we had maybe little hiccups here and there. And that calms him right down. And that's, I guess that's the best way to explain it. He just calms right down. Of course, housekeeping is number one that they look for. And we spend a lot of time on that. But that coupled with the system, he just said, yeah, I know you guys are doing the right thing. So even if he finds small things, they tend to say, well, no, these guys are doing the right thing, and they're not going to that next level, and that's what you want. OSHA visits over the last 2 years. 9 OSHA visits, 0 citations. So, and you know they're not supposed to come back with 0 citations. So, you know, put a value on that. I don't have to give you that number. You can decide for yourself what kind of value that represents. So I haven't even spoken about, well, you know, what happens long-term environmentally. Well, if you're doing the right thing, if you're setting up your goals, if you're tracking your measures and your goals, and have your procedures in place when there's a small spill or secondary containment, over the long haul, that is huge. I mean, you know, the numbers generally have 4 or 5 zeros after them when you talk about a cleanup effort. And so RIOS, from the environmental part of the program, helps you to put in the controls that will reduce the potential for those kinds of exposures. So really the question for you guys and the starting point is, what do you want to get out of the system? Start with that so you have a goal in mind. And that's really very much RIOS thinking. You start with a goal, then you develop your plan, and then you work to implement that plan, and then you check as you go along, and you adjust the plan according to what happens and what you see. So find a mentor company. Establish a realistic timeline. If you're starting from scratch, 9 to 12 months is probably a good timeline for a single yard. Longer than that, and it kind of gets lost. Shorter than that, and it starts to creep into some operational things that have to get done. Go into the process knowing all of the costs and what you want to get out of it, and track yourself as you go through it and build that relationship. 1 or 2 good, solid mentor relationships will save you a lot of time and a lot of trouble. Questions? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Oh, we have multiple. We have over 24 locations in Florida, and so they go around, and but they've visited those 4. Each one of them have had a visit in the last 3.5 years, I'd say. They come up with different programs, like the industrial hygiene program was pretty big then, and they like to visit our industry, and I don't blame them. So they come around and do that.
Okay. No fines for 9 visits.
Correct.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it? I mean, prior to this, we've had them come in, and in Ocala especially, we've had them come in. We were an independent, and sometimes they find something, and then they find 1 or 2 things, and they find 3 things. They don't have to be big to start, putting numbers to it. So it's pretty incredible. And now they know. In fact, the last time that the industrial hygienist inspector came in, he said he wanted to know if we would allow other facilities to visit our yard, which was kind of probably never going to happen, but it was nice of him to say it. Yeah.
John, every time I hear you talk about what you've gotten out of this and what you've seen, I feel like applauding you, because it's just amazing some of the results that you've seen. Some of that investment recovery. And I'm coming down here to join you because this is a small group, so I want to get a little more intimate here. Again, I'm Reich Sandlin. I have an operation in Oklahoma. It's an electronics recycler, but also handles other types of scrap as well. So let's just go around the room. There's only, I think, 7 of us here. So if you don't mind, introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about what you're doing.
My name is Andy Knudsen, and I work for Zero Accident Consulting, and we're the safety and risk management supplier to AIG and Recycle Guard Insurance Program. So we do safety, loss control inspections of scrap yards. We've done 3,000 visits over the last 8 years of recycling operations throughout the country.
And have you audited visited some RIOS RIOS companies or RIOS certified companies in that process?
I honestly don't think we have.
No, we only just started seeing.
Yeah, so I think what you just heard is you'd see a difference. It's pretty exciting.
I'm Regina Morgan, I'm from the Recycle Guard Insurance Program.
Right. Okay.
Mike Petrosino, Benson Metals, New York.
Okay.
Small scrap yard, 150 employees. I guess I recognize some of the benefits as the company, like, Johnson grew to many locations. It seems as though what I take away from this is that it becomes a management tool. It's very easy for me now, I'm in the yard, watching the employees. What happens when you got 2 yards, 4 yards, 8 yards? How could you watch everybody in all those yards? You only got 1 set of eyes.
Well, and you got to take vacation sometime.
So the question is, how do you get your implementation to many yards? I guess probably RIOS would be a way for us to have a formalized way of getting our ideas across, whether it's environmental compliance or health and safety,
Yeah.
or customer, let's say a customer introduction, how you treat or handle customers, how they interact. I mean, that's basically what I took away from this. As the company becomes larger, it gets a little harder to manage the day-to-day operations. You need something that's going to be transient, goes from one place to another.
It's a system. It's a system.
Michael Clark, Gulf Recycling, we have 8, 6 and a half, number 9 locations in eastern North Carolina. I handle the county and human
Indeed.
It's like the Lord with rights. You know, because, you know, some things that's happened. So I think anything we can do to make our place safer is a good thing.
Good.
I do have a question though. Is RIOS, the implementation, does it have anything to do with trucking aspect of the company? This where most of our losses have been is on the road, not really on the.
Well, let me introduce David here real quick. David Wagger, PhD, Dr. Dave, is with ISRI, and he is ISRI's environmental expert and also is responsible for the RIOS program. David, go for it.
Sure, so to answer your question, that is something that we've been thinking about in great seriousness. ISRI has a transportation safety director, and ISRI has safety services. I provide assistance on environmental compliance and management. If you, as an ISRI member, you get into the RIOS program. If you're here earlier, you get the best rate to get into the program, but you also have the resources of ISRI behind you to help you get that information so that you can implement it at your facility. You could incorporate that into your RIOS management system. But to the extent that it's a valuable tool, the program exists where we can add it to the implementation guide as another tool available for RIOS members to use to improve their operations from a health and safety perspective. So again, ISRI does have information, and if you haven't talked with Commodore Hall, I'm happy to introduce you to him and get you connected with him if that's an area of sort of a high priority for you. The guide does not currently directly address that, but the guide is a living document. We can put what we choose to put in it. So it's a great suggestion to have in it.
That is a good suggestion, and we've used RIOS for some of our transportation safety as well. It's a system, and so you add in to the system the things you want to control, things you want to manage.
Dave Bessie, I'm actually a business development officer for Wells Fargo. So within my portfolio, I have now 6 yards. So just kind of getting to know the business. I mitigate all the risks, so I need to know this is actually a beautiful tool for them.
Indeed, indeed.
So
Should be a requirement for all of them.
Pardon?
Should be a requirement for all of them.
Soon enough.
Okay. You guys are you the video crew? Okay.
I'm Jeff Mallon, Mallon Brothers in Kansas City, and we're mainly in the wire chopping business, and creating a final product like that, getting to consumers and everything, having that standardization, and that is just something we're kind of looking into to see if we can do it.
So you're just to the north of me in Oklahoma City.
I'm Justin Short, and I actually came on with ISRI Discover Information Department about 4 months ago, so this is me getting into the industry.
Great, welcome, Joe. All right, so I'm about to turn it over to Corey, but I wanted to express to you, again, John just gave such a great presentation on what his company got out of RIOS, right? What we've gotten out of RIOS is some similar things, but some different things too. We look at it as the internal returns and the external returns. All right. So the internal returns are we've got a great system. We got something that really drives quality, drives safety, drives environmental performance, efficiency. We actually saw, because of the quality aspects of RIOS, we saw a return on the total investment that we made in implementing RIOS within 6 months of implementing. We'd seen all the costs that we put into it, both the licensing cost and the labor and consultants and everything that we put into it. We got that return within 6 months, which is pretty good investing strategy. But then organization too. So we now have a system. We have a procedures and a process, a framework for organizing how we do business. It's as John said, it's how we run our business. It's not just some other thing out here that we do for compliance or to get a plaque on the wall. It's how we run our business. The external benefits that we saw were credentials. We actually got new business, new clients because we had certification of RIOS. Internal, we get a system. To get the external benefits, you really need to be certified. You have your system certified. So we got new clients, new business coming in the door. We retained clients because we implemented RIOS. And we've delivered more value to our clients through RIOS because of the environmental reporting that we now have the environmental information about our business. Now we can deliver that to our clients as part of the value that we provide. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Corey Demme. Corey is Vice President of Operations and Compliance for AERC Recycling. That's based in Pennsylvania. Right? He's got more than 15 years of experience in the IT industry, so he's really coming at it from the computer side. AERC is an electronics recycler. Corey's been involved with RIOS for quite a while as well. Both of these gentlemen sit on the RIOS board with me, and so we get to know each other pretty well. He's implemented RIOS at 6 facilities, implemented and gotten 6 facilities certified. 2013, you're going to go through your recertification. And Corey has Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Information Technology from Bloomsburg University. So with that, welcome Corey. Let me see if I can flip this over for you. All right, rock and roll.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, John. I think they've pretty much said it all, so thank you.
There you go.
I'm going to go off script here a little bit because, they've already made a lot of good points. So I think maybe, you can benefit from my personal experience, not just with RIOS, but with standards in general. So I'm an IT guy, and, I'm not an EH&S professional. I learned RIOS using the implementation guide. I had no experience in environmental health and safety going into it. But at the end of the day, it's really about one thing, and that's organization. Much to your point, how do you organize all these things and pull them together? How many people in here like to save money? I would assume everyone, right? In my years of experience with standards, the biggest benefit is cutting costs because you create that organization. And once you have yourself organized, your people can execute. And when they execute, you're not fighting fires all day. How many of you run around fighting fires all day in operations? Yeah, it just sucks up all your time. You can't move the pendulum forward when you're fighting fires all day. So how do you get over that hump? This is one way to do it, is through a standard approach. The biggest benefit, like Rick said, much of it, that you get from RIOS that you don't get from ISO 14000 or you don't get from OSAS 18001 is that quality aspect. Because when you implement quality controls in your processes and you figure that out, you dampen the fires. And if you're not fighting fires, then you're pushing product through quicker at a reduced cost. So my first experience with standards was ISO 9001. I was working IT support at Bethlehem Steel, a steel plant producing rail. And I came into it, it was already there, they were already certified. I had to learn how to, work within the system, change management, document control, corrective actions, all these things that we hear about in standards. And, I thought it was a good thing at the time. I didn't think much about it. And a few years later, I took another position with a different company to manage an operation that configured about 50,000 computers a year and set them out for deployment. And when I went into this operation, there was a lot of chaos. A lot of production getting stopped by problems, in the way we did it. So I kind of took what I learned from the ISO 9001 experience and started applying, documentation, processes, controls, source control, and applied these concepts that I just picked up from my experience at Bethlehem Steel. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, product is flowing through. We're not hitting the stoppages. And we invested a little bit on the front end, to hash out the problems before we started production. And by doing that, we were able to take a $5 million operation and cut it to $2.5 million. $2.5 million just by implementing processes, process control, documentation. So if nothing else, a standard like RIOS is your roadmap. It's your way to get from point A to point B, and it will absolutely drive down costs if you take the time to do it and implement it. So that was my first success with that kind of approach. So when I came to AERC, coming out of this operation I talked about, I was looking at the same thing. I mean, we were faced with, at the time, the previous manager that I was taking over for was headed down the ISO 14001 path. And I reevaluated, where we're at, where we're going. This was the beginning. This was 2009, so these certifications like R2, RIOS were still kind of bubbling out there, but not really taking hold. And when I saw the RIOS program and the implementation guide that came with it, I mean, I'm not an EH&S guy. I don't have that background or that knowledge to know how to do a footprint or an aspects evaluation. But I saw how it pulled it together and created that organization that I'm talking about. And it's that organization that ultimately makes us successful. So, so right now, oops. So back in 2009, I started the process of certifying 5 of AERC's facilities to R2 and RIOS. There was a market demand for the certification. It was a no-brainer, to go that path. Self-taught by the implementation guide, by picking David Wagger's brain. And, I got the first site implemented. Had some bumps, some things I didn't interpret correctly. But then we rolled it, the same system, to our other sites, and we were able to grow the company based on that level of organization. So it's interesting because I left AERC about 17 months ago or so, after I had gotten all these facilities certified. And I just came back in March to AERC. And AERC has 5 electronics facilities, and we have 3 or 4 universal waste. We have a mercury retort operation. So we kind of have a universal waste side of the business and an electronics side of the business. So the universal waste side of the business is regulated, permitted, has historically followed all the rules of permits. And the electronic side of the business isn't very heavily regulated. So now we have the electronic side, which is certified under RIOS and certified under R2, and we have the universal waste side, which is following government permits. So the information I provide to you today is kind of coming back to that and seeing the difference 3 years later, between the two sides of the business. RIOS is a do-it-yourself approach, right? Again, teaching internal resources, how to build and implement an EH&S management system. It took me 8 months from start to finish to learn RIOS, to follow the implementation guide, to put in place and actually get certified, the first site. One of the benefits of internal resources is you're building knowledge, right? You're taking resources who understand your business, and you're reducing your external costs. So why was RIOS the right choice for AERC? I think we covered that. I'm going the wrong way, sorry. So I think you've all seen these already, so I'm just going to breeze through this. Of course, RIOS is a 3-in-1 solution, combining quality, environmental health, and safety. So the benefits that we've seen, number 1, an improved image. If you want to improve the image of your facility, your operations, and I know some of you aren't in that space, but a management system certification forces you to implement those controls, forces you to become better organized, and ultimately it's going to show better to the public and also to your customers. I'm messing up, I'm sorry. Yeah, this works better. All right.
Low tech.
It has enhanced our business qualifications. You know, the quality of the products we're producing are much better. The quality of our supply coming in is better because we're communicating with our upstream customers exactly what we can take and what we can't. So we're not getting the, fire smoke detectors, with radioactive material or things like that. We're not getting all the things that cause us to fight fires. It's provided us with better environmental responsibility and of course, safety for our workers. Common sense.
I think we're synced up here. I apologize.
Oh, we're not? Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So where do you want to be?
We'll go here.
Yeah, it's still not synced up.
Here, just underneath the notes.
Is that where you want to be?
Sure. That's right. All right, we talked about some of these things here. Another big benefit that we've seen, and I'm comparing the two sides of the business again. I'm comparing my universal waste facilities and I'm comparing my electronics facilities. It's forced clear definition of roles and responsibilities. We have documented processes for just about everything. We're generating records. If there's a meeting, if there's training, we can prove it. There's a record of who was there. We're communicating better. And we're trying to do this among, 5 different sites around the country. And we have monitoring activities that keep us on track. So one of the tangible benefits is reduced customer audit time. So we have lots of customers who want to come in and audit us, or they're asking for information to do business with us. Everything's organized. We have the records. We have the documents to provide to them. They see that professional image that we're putting out there because we've gone through this process. So if that's something you're looking for in your business, RIOS is gonna force you to get there. I talked about putting out fires. The way I like to call, I worked for EDS for 12 years, and did you ever see the herding cats commercial? During the Super Bowl where the Cowboys are riding around trying to lasso up cats. So, it's chaos, right? So you can either have chaos in your facility or you can have managed chaos. I don't think you'll ever get rid of chaos, but I like to call it managed chaos. And that's what we're able to do with the processes and controls that we put into place. So that's my personal experience. My electronics facilities probably are more organized and better operated under certification than my facilities that are permitted. So our goal now that I'm coming back is to incorporate now all of our facilities into the RIOS program. So I see the benefit. We're going to invest in it, and we're going to move forward with all of our sites. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Earlier you said that you went from 5 million to 2.5. What was some of was that just in process, or was that just all cost of goods sold? What's the quantifiable processes that saved that money?
Honestly, it was for avoiding rework. It was the quality process of it. Because we'd have product going down the line and we get stopped for something. We're configuring computers, so we didn't have a user account, or we didn't have the right software, or we had to contact the customer, and things would just go on hold. And then we would start other products. So what we had done was put into place the controls on the front end to flush out all those issues and make sure that we were ready to run the line. And then we'd run the order through, and we would run without issues. And that's what reduced our costs.
Typically, what's the adoption rate, like the adoption time by the time you start the implementation to get, like most of the people that are on board to start doing these processes?
Yeah. I mean, each one's going to vary depending on the culture, depending on at what point the company is at. I like to start with, and you might be able to vouch for this as well, it comes down to say what you do what you say, and prove it, right? So I like to start with the employees telling me exactly what we're doing, and then we look at how to organize or manage or tweak it, to fit and make sure we're covering the requirements or where we identify those improvements. So how long does it take?
Generally, the buy-in from, to everybody to be on board. I mean, that's probably the initial problems that I would get.
Yeah, so
Say, hey, this process is good, this process works. They would say, how long?
My experience in terms of buy-in is it depends on the top management. You've got to have an executive that says, we're going to do this. Because we care about employee health and safety, because we care about the environment, and because we want to grow our business, we're going to do this. We're committed, and that commitment of time and resources from the very top means that the buy-in can happen fairly quickly. Now, the implementation cycle can be longer or shorter based on how far along you are already. If you've already got some procedures documented, if you already have a health and safety program of some sort, then things move a bit faster. If you don't have anything, you're starting from scratch, then it's going to take some time to really build the program.
yeah, so my approach is, get the employees involved in telling you how they do it, and they're going to know how they do it best, and then use the standard as your crutch to say, well, we have to change this to meet the standard, and that way, it's not a battle of whose way is right or wrong. So, all right, thank you.
Good. All right, thanks, Corey. A couple of comments. Just another experience that we've had is because we've got the RIOS system in place, and John alluded to OSHA, right? He talked about OSHA coming in and doing surprise visits and so forth. What we've done is because we have such confidence in our system, we invite OSHA in. So every year we say, Oklahoma OSHA, can you guys come in and check us out as a voluntary program that OSHA actually provides in most states, I think, that if you want them to come in and check you out, then they'll do it. And, every year after year, they're like, man, you guys are great. Here's some suggestions on how you can improve things. But overall, it's great. And last year, they actually started talking up, if we can improve this and this right here, we'd like to give you an award and make hay out of this and invite other companies to come see us. At least in Oklahoma, it's called the SHARP program. I don't know if that's a national. So they wanted to do a safety award for us because of the RIOS system and what we're doing there. A number of times we talked about the implementation guide. All right, David, do you have an implementation guide with you?
Actually, it's at the booth.
It's at the booth, yeah. So the implementation guide is about that thick.
Only if you print it out.
Only if you print it out, but it can look intimidating. But why is that? It's because it's got a lot of different scenarios covered in there. For our operation, we implemented about that much of it because that's what applied to our operation, right? But this is a great resource, a great tool that says if you've got this, and this, here's sample procedures for you. Here's sample worksheets to go through. Here's all this. But fundamentally, it is, do what you say you do, right? Write it down. If you say you're going to move this to here, from here to here, just write it down, and then you evaluate the risks, right? The risks and hazards. If I move this from here to here, do I have a safety risk of dropping it on my toe or whatever? Do I have an environmental risk because it could spill or it could do something? Evaluate your risk, evaluate your hazards. And then do something to address them. Are the risks and hazards significant? And then we do something to address them. And then we monitor and measure. Hey, were we effective? Did we deal with those hazards and risks in an effective way? So RIOS is, you'll hear this frequently, plan, do, check, act, right? You plan what you do it, you check on what you did, and then you act on what you found when you checked. And it's a continuous loop, it's a continuous cycle. And it's pretty straightforward. So don't get intimidated by the volume of what's there in the implementation guide. Recognize that that's just an incredible tool to use. And if you think about, and Corey, you've been on the consulting side of this, if you think about how much someone would pay to generate that much in terms of documentation for a company, the consulting for that would be tens of thousands probably, right? $1 million, yeah. You want to get back into consulting business, don't you? So it's pretty phenomenal. My other comment is and that just comes with the program. You become a RIOS member, you get the implementation guide. So if you become a RIOS member, are you like, the fourth one to do it? No, there's 195 companies, 195 facilities enrolled in RIOS right now. Of those, what is it, David? 83.
Actually, it's 84 because Schnitzer Steel got its certification
All right,
just
Schnitzer.
the other day.
All right,
I had it up on my other slide, 84.
84 facilities have not just become a member and implemented the program, but have actually proceeded to certification. 84 facilities. So that's about 46% of the facilities that are in the program have actually proceeded on to certification. That doesn't mean that the other 54 aren't getting value out of it. They've got the system in their hands. They've implemented it to varying degrees. They're starting to see value out of it, and they just haven't gotten to that certification stage yet. All right. So other questions? All right. Let me also comment. John mentioned the mentoring. All three of us, and I know many of the other board members have mentored other companies. So as they look to implement the programs, it's not something we charge for. It's just because we believe in the value of this system in terms of upping the performance and the bar in this industry. So we are happy to do that. Just come talk to us, and one of us will be happy to help you out. David, do you have anything else? Any closing comments?
Sure. So as far as fleet management goes, we have trucks, and we just fold it in. If you take a look at the implementation guide and the structure of the program, it's very easy to fold in control of over that area of your business. With respect to insurance, we've presented what we have when we were a private company, an independent, and that helped us on our rates. Insurance company, the underwriters love to see controls that are in place and policies and procedures that are followed. So that was a great benefit, and that was actually a way for them to communicate, an easy way for them to communicate with us what they're looking for. With respect to the, how long does it take to implement? I come from a family-owned business, so it took about, what Corey said was correct, but about 2 minutes to implement in a sense, because we got up and said, we're doing this, and that was the end of that, But it's important then to, if the employees are on board, to be consistent with that message and to continue it so they don't think it's just something that's coming today and going tomorrow. The point that you made was more insightful than I've heard a lot of people say, because in the scrap business, it is an older industry, and the first reaction is, I have a management system. It's right here. So when you're saying, well, yeah, that's great if you're there, if you're sitting there, but what happens if you have yard 2, yard 3, yard 4? And that's what this system brings. One of the advantages it brings your direction, your vision, your procedures implemented when you're not there. So that was a very interesting point that you made, and I wanted to make sure I highlighted that.
Can I say something?
Sure.
And to that point, I said that I left the ARC and I just went back. My position was not backfilled with another full-time resource while I was gone. And the company continued to be certified every year, continued to operate under those controls that we had implemented, and had
been successful. I mean, we just had our recertification audit for the first facility here in May, or March. And, you know, it works. It's a growth strategy. So,
Yeah, it's a good point. It does let you go on vacation.
yeah.
Actually, to kind of reiterate on that point, what I like about the RIOS system is that it keeps you interacting with the employees and customers, which I think is, you know, I've heard, case studies, let's say, of the guy that goes to work, says hello to everybody in the morning, and nobody sees him the rest of the day, and 10 years later, he's on a Superfund site.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect. Or he's got lousy quality controls on his materials. I like the fact that this interaction with your employees is a reason to go out there and see exactly what they're doing, find out why they're doing it, and then build on how that can be done better on many different fronts. So, and even if you're in other yards, it's still a traceable plan. So even if you're not sitting in that yard, watching what's going on, interacting with the employees, somebody else is doing it, documenting it, and you're following those reports. My only question with the RIOS is, at some point, how do you differentiate between valuable paperwork and paperwork that's just, you know, what paperwork cuts to the bottom line that you can say, that saved me this much money, or this paperwork is just, you know, people going through routines. From your experience, how do you cut through that tape and build what processes really cut to the heart of this initiative?
What do you guys think?
You gotta look at it, you know, it's like any other part of the business, kind of. It's your system, it works for your company. So put the obvious ones, oh yeah, we need this procedure, we need this procedure, we need this control, I need to measure these 5 things. I mean, I'm sure you can tell me the 5 things right now, so, and start with that. And then start building it out. And we did actually go overboard when we put the system together. So we put another process in place where it was contracted. So another great point, you know, you don't want to go too far out. And where is that sweet spot? And where am I just wasting time? Put some controls in place, a process, a half-hour meeting once a month, and we're going to just sit down in a meeting, a couple of guys, and we're going to just, yeah, this is working. No, we don't see any benefit in this. Out it goes. And that's kind of, so that's part of managing your business, but like you said, it's critical to do because it can grow too much. You know, a procedure for taking a 10-minute break, maybe, I don't know, you know. But how to bail siding, yeah, definitely I want that in there. And how to perform QC on a bail, yeah, I definitely want that in there. And then you just start building it up. Once you get certified, it's not the end of the process. It's just you have a viable system in place and you have a plan and a process for continuing to improve it. And that's what you have to prove to get certified. So it's up to you then to say, that's not important to me, I'm not tracking it. This is important to me, I want to track it.
Yeah, the implementation does not reach a point where you say, I'm done. It is a continuous improvement thing. And so for our experience, we implemented it, and I talked about a 6-month payback. That was because we implemented a quality improvement that just saw, tremendous reduction in quality problems, which was huge cost savings for us. All right, so check that one. That one was done. All right, so now then we look at the next thing that to attack. And so it's just it's not one document or one thing that drove the cost factor. It was this one, and then we went and did this one, and then we did this one, and it's a cycle. Good. Other questions, comments? What's holding you back?
Has anybody ever joined RIOS and then found it was not worth their time or their effort? Have you lost members from RIOS?
Yes, we have more members come on and come off. Occasionally one does. I think, remember it was John, and you talked about you don't want to let the process go on too long of implementing because you lose momentum and get lost. That's what happened in that facility, is that they had this plan to become a member, get a team together, when different people had different responsibilities for pushing the implementation process, and fires happened, and they got so overwhelmed with the fires, they couldn't really focus on doing the implementing side of it. And after maybe 15 months, when their renewal came up, I reached out to them and said, you haven't renewed, is there a problem, can I help you with something? He says, we just can't get other things out of the way to focus on this right now, so. And actually, that company came back. So we actually had one that dropped out and then came back.
So again, that executive level backing of the project is important, and then the perseverance to see it through is important as well.
But if you do get stuck, you go in the program, you do get stuck, certainly let me know. I can connect you with someone who's been through, maybe they've already gone through the process you've gone through. It can shortcut you to a solution where you can't see, or not you, but one cannot see it because it takes time to see it. But if you talk to John or to Corey or to Wright, say, oh yeah, we did that, and it took us 3 months, but we figured out all you need to do is that, and you're done. And you can move on, you can continue on. It's really getting the barriers out of the way, which would be the key to keep your momentum going. And I think employees got excited about it. Once they found they had the opportunity to influence what they did and to have a realization that what they did mattered to the success of the organization, I think it really juiced up their own sense of worth in the organization. That's what the feedback that I've gotten from other members.
The biggest tip for implementation is go ahead and schedule your audit date, because it'll keep you on track.
Put the finish line out there.
Yeah. If you don't do that, then it's just gonna keep, other priorities are gonna keep bumping you off. So if you're serious about it, start the program, set your audit date.
Does hiring a consultant help, let's say a fringe company, someone that might fall off the track, kind of keep you focused or help you get to that finish line?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple different ways you can approach it. You can hire a consultant to do all the work, and document everything, or you can hire a consultant to be your project manager, and just keep you on track and on target and guide you to what you need to do.
Or you hire a consultant for a particular part of it that you don't have the expertise to deal with.
Yeah.
And you can handle everything else, but this percentage of the project you don't have to deal with.
Well, you raise a point that I didn't mention in my presentation before, is that sometimes when you go through the process of implementation, you will find an area, as Wright said, where you don't have the expertise. That's more about sort of the aspect of health, environment, health and safety, or quality that you would have to implement anyway if you were going to really get to meet your goals. Everyone encounters a point at which they say, oh, we haven't implemented it ever, we don't have the expertise, we have to find a consultant. I think your question goes to, okay, I have a limited number of staff, I have this goal, I want to do it in 12 months. I'm going to need extra person hours somewhere in there to get us through the process. That's where a consultant can be helpful in being basically extra staff. And whether they take on the project management aspect of it, or they basically help you get the management system fleshed out, that's a decision you'll have to make in terms of whether the project manager, I think, has the benefit of, for lack of a better word, touching more people inside the organization and getting them more connected in the process. If a consultant kind of do it for you and say, here, this is your management system, you don't get the value out of that. You get some documents, and I think it's to your point, you have documents that you maybe don't have a lot of value because you're not familiar with it.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, that would be bad, I think.
yeah, I think one should resist that.
Right, and that's the right way to say it, is to resist it, because it is the easier path to get to, let's say, certification, but it's gotta be a cultural, it's gotta be absorbed by the people, and so they know the business, you know where you want the business to go, so it's very imperative that they stay in it, you stay in it, and your managers, if you have managers, I'm sure you do, stay in it.
Out of respect for the schedule, I'm going to call it at this point. Just wanted to highlight this packet that you got when you came in. This is a packet that ISRI put together to market RIOS, but both to recyclers, but also to your customers. So as you think about the benefits that to your company, and you want to take this back and talk to your management about it, or talk to your employees about it, say, hey, this is hot stuff. The materials and FAQs and that kind of stuff is in this brochure. In addition, if part of what you need to do is market to your customers, to say, see some of those benefits that I mentioned in terms of new business or retained business, more value to my customers. This has got some of those answers as well, so it's a great thing. If you would, just join me in thanking these, Corey and John for their expertise. And certainly available for more questions if you have them.
I'll be here, I'll also be at the booth. If you go to the exhibition hall and look for the Central Art Pavilion,